Yo ho ho, Don Mafia. Welcome to yet another edition of the Don Mafia Report. The Buffalo Bills were back at it today on the practice field, but let's just say that it didn't start off the way that we all expected. This morning, I was scrolling through Twitter, and then of course we see the news break that a bunch of people in the NFL tested positive for the coronavirus, specifically a lab that is based out of New Jersey, and a lot of teams in the Northeast region use that specific lab for their testing capabilities. And lo and behold, they f***ed up. There was cases left and right from not only the Bills, but I believe it was the Steelers as well, the Browns, whatever. And then it turned out to be that they were virtually all false positives. And as soon as when I scroll through Twitter and I see that Josh Allen is not at practice today, after I see a tweet saying that a bunch of players across the NFL have tested positive for coronavirus, you know that your boy is shivering in his boots. Thank God, news just ended up breaking that Josh Allen was amongst the players that ended up testing false positive rather. As long as he goes through the protocols, he is going to be back in action on Monday. Now, this is definitely something to think about because there's been mixed reports on really how Allen has been progressing throughout training camp this year, and it sounds like there's a lot of peaks and valleys. If there's anybody that needs the reps out in that field, as many reps as possible, it is Josh Allen. So I'm just going to have to say that New Jersey lab really dropped the ball. I mean, I'm not sure whether or not that these people just decided to show up to work annihilated or something like that. Maybe one of the interns was walking down the hallway with all the results and he dropped them all over the floor and he just decided to make an educated guess of who is most likely to test positive. Who knows? But I mean, that was a detrimental blow to the Bills. I know that Vernon Butler was out too. Same with Harrison Phillips. It was definitely tough. But I mean, lo and behold, Bills practice still happened today. So I mean, we do need to give you a couple of updates. Starting off with just the general injuries today. We ended up seeing Taiwan Jones left practice. It seemed to be some type of leg injury. Updates will continue to be brought to you once we get them. And then same thing with Josh Norman. He's still nursing that hamstring injury since he's out indefinitely. And so good news, we did end up seeing Ed Oliver and Tremaine Edmonds and AJ Klein return to practice today after nursing their sore hips / sore feet. So minus the whole false COVID scenario that happened this morning, for the most part, we saw a lot of Bills in action. And so really some top storylines are what exactly were the backup quarterbacks doing, right? And if I had to sum it up in a very brief take, if Josh Allen ever were to go down, this team is royally Apparently, Matt Barkley ended up struggling pretty bad. In fact, there was a clip of him missing Diggs wide open. Then again, I did hear that he did end up doing a touchdown drive with Diggs, making sure that he brought in that touchdown reception. But I mean, for the most part, Matt Barkley was nothing really to be impressed about. And then once you read articles saying things like a good day for Jake Fromm is when he's not mentioned in articles or he's not mentioned during the day. So I mean, the quarterback play, I mean, we need Josh Allen healthy, and we need Josh Allen to actually go in there and take as many reps as possible so he can be ready for week 1. Luckily for Josh, he's going up against the Bills defense, and maybe some of his other opponents are just going to be like a breath of fresh air by the time that the season starts. So the QB play, definitely something to watch out for. God, Josh, please be back tomorrow. Number two, huge-ass storyline. Gabe Davis has been absolutely showing out this year during training camp. Now, a lot of people were high on Isaiah Hodgins during the first couple of days, but a lot of people aren't understanding that Gabe Davis is showing up each and every single day, making consistent plays, wowing his coaches, and really making a name for himself to be on this roster. Now, before I even heard how he was performing during training camp, I did have him making the 53-man squad, but it sounds like that this guy might be involved in first-team offense a little more than anticipated. Based off of what I'm hearing from these rookies, it might be bad news for receivers such as Duke Williams, maybe even Isaiah McKenzie, but I mean, this is just a fantastic problem to have, in my opinion. I mean, when was the last time that we just had such a depth out wide receiver room that we would even have to be having this conversation. So, I mean, look out for Gabe Davis. He's set to play a pretty big role in this offense this year, and especially if he can keep this up. Super excited to watch this dude play. And some other good performances today at Bills camp. Tyler Kroft. When the was the last time you heard me say that name? It sounds like he had a very, very good day with training camp. Granted, he was most likely paired with either the second or third string quarterback, but at the end of the day, he was still showing off his athleticism. In 2019, in my opinion, we really didn't get to see Tyler Kroft, probably because he was injured for the majority of the time, and we really didn't instill him in our game plan. I mean, honestly, I think the guy has a lot of potential, seeing that he can stay healthy throughout the entire year, especially since we understand that our tight end room was kind of a question, right? I mean, you have Lee Smith, who most likely just got called for a penalty for some odd no reason. We don't know why. And then we have Dawson Knox, who I think has great upside, but only time will tell to see whether or not that he has addressed the issue of his drops in 2019. Kroft could be a sleeper pick for tight ends this year, and sounds like he's making it happen. Last but not least, probably the most back and forth battle in training camp history, Tyler Bass and Stephen Hauschka. Apparently Bass struggled today in camp. You can never find a day during Bills camp where both Hauschka and Bass have tremendous days. I feel like that they're just switching bad juju depending on the day that they go into work. But from what I understand, Bass ended up hitting his short to intermediate kicks, but he ended up wafting his over 50. And so at this point, only time will tell who is going to be our kicker at this point. I don't know. And so leave a comment and let me know exactly what you're thinking. Dom Mafia, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another edition of the Dom Mafia Report. Like I said, I'm going to be dropping a daily video every time the Bills put their pads on for practice during this training camp. So say that you're new here, I highly recommend subscribing to this channel, smashing the fuck out of that like button, and while you're doing so, always remember, let's go Buffalo.